Rustem Pasha. Rustem-Paša Turkish pronunciation. Ристем-паша, Ottoman Turkish, rstem Croatian, Rustem-Paša Opuković Serbian, Rustem-Paša Opuković c. 1510 July 1561, was an Ottoman statesman who served as the Grand Vizier of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. Rustem Pasha is also known as Damat Rüstem Pasha, the epithet Damat meaning son-in-law, to the Ottoman dynasty as a result of his marriage to the Sultan's daughter, Mihrimah Sultan. He is known as one of the most influential and successful Grand Viziers of the Ottoman Empire. Rustem Pasha was taken as a child to Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, where he built a military and bureaucracy career. He was very well educated. On 26 November 1539, he married Miframa Sultan, the daughter of Sultan Suleiman I, and his wife Hurrem Sultan. His brother Sinan Pasha was an Ottoman Grand Admiral. Early life. Ottoman sources speak about Rustem as a Croat or Serb. Rustem is referred to as a Croat by Tayyib Osman Zaid Ahmed, writer of the work Hadikatul Vuzara and the Turkish encyclopedia Kamus ul-Alam. He is referred to as a Serb by Turkey's historiographer Mustafa Ali. Rustem owes his career to the support of Hurrem Sultan. He was extremely ambitious. Rustem Pasha was a man of very humble origins. He came as a child to Constantinople, where he studied at Enderun, an institute for the education/indoctrination of talented boys forcibly recruited through devshirme from Christian parents in the Balkans. At the end, the graduates were able to speak, read, and write at least 3 languages, able to understand the latest developments in science, finance, and excel in army command, as well as in close combat skills. That was the perfect start for a career in the military and bureaucracy. In 1526, Rustem took part in the Battle of Mohacs as Salahtar weapon-bearer in a cavalry division. Salahtars were an elite division of the Ottoman army. Members of this division could also become ordinary soldiers, non-aristocrat, if they proved to be extraordinarily courageous and loyal. A few years later, Rustem advanced to Murahar Ivel Aga, chief supervisor of the Sultan's stables, and Rakabdar, the stirrup holder, when the ruler got on the horse. The Murahar accompanied the Sultan during his travels, so the Sultan knew Rustem a long time before he appointed him, possibly inspired by Hurrem, the tutor of his sons. In making this decision, he was surely influenced by Rustem's character. Most historical sources describe Rustem as a reasonable and calm man with a keen intellect, who always keeps a cool head, and who is always unconditionally devoted to his ruler. These characteristics reflected Rustem's faith and brought Rustem Suleiman the Magnificent and the famous jurist Ebisud Effendi Mehmed Ebisud Effendi permanently closer together. Rustem was a Sunni and preferred the spiritual order of Sunni Islam Sufism Naqshbandi. Wealth and legacy. As Grand Vizier, he collected vast wealth. Even Rustem's sworn opponents admitted that he never boasted of his wealth or power, although he was a man of fortune, and that he was the very first Grand Vizier in the history of the Ottoman Empire who significantly contributed to the development of the state from his own funds. According to most period testimonies, excluding Taslakali Yahya Bey's Seyzade Mustafa Mersiesi, nonetheless, Rustem's famous economic talent and his modest way of life, both highly valued by the Sultan, made him rich even before his marriage to Mihrimah Sultan. In his last will, a part of endowment charter from 1561, Rustem made an inventory of every single detail of his property in order to secure his great foundation projects after his death. Rustem's testament determines exactly which part of his property belongs to the state, to his foundations, to the Hurrem Sultan's foundation, and to Mihrimah's foundations, what he leaves to his wife Miframa and to their daughter Ристем Sultan. He determines his wife Miframa Sultan as executor of his last will and his daughter Ристем as the executor and administrator of his foundations. All historians emphasize Rustem's relentless hard work to consolidate the troubled economy of the Ottoman Empire, impoverished by excessive spending on wars and a lavish lifestyle of the court and his efforts to improve it. The period documents say that he also generously financed this upswing from his own resources. On his lands were built toll-free bridges, roads, covered bazaars, granaries, baths, hospices, caravanserais, convents, schools, and various other establishments for the public benefit. Their funding was largely secured by the leasing of Rustem's estates. He supported agriculture, founded new trading centers like the bazaar in Sarajevo or silk factories in Bursa and Istanbul, social and educational institutions. He developed the domestic economy by encouraging major public works projects and built a modern infrastructure, trade routes, and water networks in Istanbul, Mecca, and Jerusalem. He also found enough money in the treasury to make Suleiman's dream come true, Suleymaniye Mosque 1550-57, as well as to fund other monumental architectural projects realized by the legendary Mimar Sinan. To reduce protectionism in the state administration, an official installment fee was introduced and confiscated when the officials misused his authority. Rustem's reform of the military remained unfinished. At the time of his death in Constantinople on 10 July 1561, his personal property included 815 lands in Rumelia and Anatolia, 476 mills, 1,700 slaves, 2,900 war horses, 1,106 camels, 800 gold embroidery holy Qurans, 500 books. The Rustem-Paša Mosque Turkish Rustem-Paša Camiye is an Ottoman mosque located in Hasarsular Karsisi Stramet Weavers Market in Fatih, Turkey, which was designed by Ottoman imperial architect Mimar Sinan for Grand Vizier Rustem Pasha. It was built between 1561 and 1563. Political career. At first, Rustem Pasha was a Sanjak Bey. After the death of Pargali Ibrahim Pasha, his way became very easy. He was promoted to Beylerbey of the Diyarbakir. When he married Mihrimah Sultan, Rustem was already a vizier. Suleiman the Magnificent made Rustem the Grand Vizier for the first time in 1544. But in 1553, Rustem was dismissed from his position. After 2 years, he took this position again from 1555 until his death in 1561. As a diplomat, Rustem initiated many trade agreements with European countries and India. His biggest success in the diplomatic area was the agreement with the King Ferdinand I and the Emperor Charles V, which confirmed, without firing a shot, the western border of the Ottoman Empire for more than 14 years, signed in 1547. Ferdinand renounced his claim to the Kingdom of Hungary and agreed to pay a tax of 30,000 gold ducats per year into the Ottoman treasury. The ambassador of the Emperor Augir Geislin de Busbecq wrote that Charles had tried on several occasions. Rustem also worked on the agreement with the Safavids signed 1554, which ended the long-standing Ottoman-Safavid wars and secured the eastern borders of the Ottoman Empire. Suleiman was manipulated by Hurrem's intrigues when he murdered Ibrahim and replaced him with his son-in-law, Rustem Pasha. Rustem was not Suleiman's son-in-law when Ibrahim Pasha was executed. The background of Ibrahim's execution was much more complicated, e.g., he used the seal Sultan Ibrahim, retained the majority of the confiscated property of Suleiman's Minister of Finance Iskandar Celebi, whose execution he ordered, etc. Ibrahim was replaced with Ismail Pasha, followed by Lutfi Pasha, and Hatem Suleiman Pasha. Rustem's career developed, unlike Ibrahim, exactly according to the rules. He became Grand Vizier 8 years after Ibrahim's death. Later, Hurrem and Rustem conspired against Sayyiid Mustafa for many years. The very ambitious Mustafa received foreign ambassadors as well as Ottoman commanders many times, without his father's knowledge, and was regarded by them as an important ally against Suleiman. So the Austrian ambassador Ghislain de Busbecq, visiting Mustafa before Suleiman, informed his ruler, "Mustafa will be an excellent sultan, receptive and open to talks." And the papal ambassador Navajeros said, "Mustafa lives with his mother. She says that people adore him." Understanding the danger of the situation, Suleiman remembered his father Selim I dethroning his grandfather Bayezid Roman II, who was killed only a month after his abdication in 1512. Officers loyal to him advised that a part of the army is getting ready to put Mustafa on the throne. In 1552, while preparing a campaign against Persia, Suleiman appointed Rustem Sir commander-in-chief of the campaign. But soldiers assembled in the military camp in Karaman, Anatolia, rejected Suleiman's appointment and insisted Rustem should be replaced with Mustafa. The same problem was faced by Rustem's brother Sinan Pasha as admiral of the Ottoman fleet during the Tripolis siege, even though he achieved many victories until his death in 1553. The destabilization continued. Mustafa's so often cited correspondence with the Safavids signed Sultan Mustafa kept today in archives was in this context probably not so relevant. It could be authentic, it could be a Safavids or a Hurrem Rustem deception, or maybe Suleiman's safeguard to calm public opinion after Mustafa's death. There are various versions of reports on Mustafa's end in the Iregli Valley. According to one of them, Rustem Pasha made an offer to Mustafa to join his father's army, and at the same time he warned Suleiman that Mustafa was coming to kill him. According to another version, it was Suleiman himself who summoned his son to Iregli, and Mustafa came confident that the army would protect him. Only Rustem appears in all the versions as the antagonist. However, it is not surprising, as they are all based on Mustafa's PR chief consultant Taslıkali Yahya Bey's elegy, Seyzade Mustafa Mersiesi. Even the report of the Austrian ambassador de Busbecq, who claims to have received an account from an eyewitness, had the same origin. Rustem, suspended and banished, was fair game as an object of violence. No one dared to criticize the Sultan himself. Suleiman probably realized this and called Rustem back 2 years later. Rustem's scapegoating as the seemingly dominant figure of the conspiracy against Mustafa radically changed public opinion. And so the Rustem extolled years ago as the pillar of the Ottoman Empire, brilliant economist, and sophisticated statesman, was forgotten, as well as his great projects and charitable foundations. He became Rustem the Black Heart, the murderer of the loved Prince Mustafa. Nothing was enough to make him dirty. His dirty origin, the imputation of bribery, the story with the louse. The louse. The louse. The louse. The louse. The louse. The louse. The louse. The louse. The louse. The louse. Some foreign ambassadors like Ghislain de Busbecq or Bernardo Navigero repeated it spitefully in their reports, all the more that Rustem was as a diplomat an invincible opponent. The agreement from 1547 must not be forgotten. Unlike them, Jean Chesneau, the secretary of the French ambassador, wrote about him, "The Grand Vizier is a man of humble origin who, thanks to his talent and will, worked his way up from nothing. He is an agreeable companion, engaging your interest with his acute faculty of judgment, an insightful way of thinking, and magnanimous manners." During the negotiations, Taslıkali Yahya Bey's elegy, the reports of ambassadors, administrative dossiers, foundation charters, and some private documents like Hurrem's and Miframah's plea to Suleiman when Rustem was expelled to Üsküdar, are the only period sources reporting on Rustem's life. They were also the basis of the often cited İbrahim Pasevi's work Tarihi Pasevi, published 80 years after Rustem's death. Relationship with Miframa. Mihrimah Sultan was married off to the governor of Diyarbakir Rustem in 1539. After his marriage, he was nominated to the vizierate in November 1544. Though the union was unhappy, Miframa flourished as a patroness of the arts and continued her travels with her father until her husband's death. This marriage had, like many dynastic unions, a political character. Hurrem's role was probably important. Nonetheless, according to the rules, it was a decision of the father. Rustem was at that time already a wealthy man and had, since 1538, a splendid career as governor of Anatolia, one of the two most important administrative regions in the Ottoman Empire. This post was considered to be a preliminary stage to Grand Vizier. Miframa knew Rustem for a very long time as the mentor of her brothers and the advisor of her father. After his death, Miframa accomplished his work, as well as the Rustem-Paša Mosque 1561–63, one of Mimar Sinan's most impressive projects. Rustem supported Mihrimah's charitable foundations. For example, the Mihrimah Sultan İskel Camia Mihrimah Sultan Mosque in Üsküdar, 1540–48, a known kuliye in Istanbul, Mimar Sinan project. Rustem was also Mihrimah's mentor, particularly concerning political and financial decisions. His last will from 1561 provides evidence of his confidence in his wife. Rustem's brother Sinan Pasha, who died in December 1553, a turbulent year for the family, was later buried in Mihrimah Sultan complex in Üsküdar. The daughter, Sultan, born 1547, was married in 1561 to Semzi Ahmet Pasha. Death. Rustem Pasha died after a long illness on 10 July 1561 of hydrocephalus. He was buried in the Seyzade Mosque, dedicated to Suleiman's favorite son Seyzade Mahmud 1520–1543, because his dream project, the Rustem-Paša Mosque, was not yet built. His tomb is alongside that of Seyzade Mahmud's. Popular culture. In the acclaimed Turkish television series Muhteşem Yüzyıl, he is portrayed by actor Ozan Güven.